What does this day bring, Ata?
Sun all day.
Actually, my app says it's going to rain at noon.
Sun.
Rain!
Sun!
Rain!
Listen, I am going to buy my own boat. Who is with me? Give me my fish.
Hey, you! Down here in the bucket.
Me?
Do you see another old man looking at me?
Stop talking and go back to being a fish.
Come and dead me.
I will.
If I jump out of this bucket, I will slap you with my fin. Slap, slap, slap. You have to stroke it, then poke it.
You want to join?
Yes.
Do I get a wish?
No,
You just talk.
I'm sorry. Is that not like cool enough for you?
He would like to apply for a loan.
We can only consider a 3-year payback plan.
You think I will die in 3 years?
No.
Oh, she paused.
Papa.
That fish is very rare. How much?
Priceless.
I need a message first.
The message is, eat me.
We are screwed. Trust me, gambling is like swimming. It's in my DNA.
Where is school?
I miss his Jesus fish.
One thing about being Olu is we always value the ones we love.
Wow. So, one trip to Accra, and the man has become a poet.
Shut up!
From the superhero team-up that nobody was expecting to a legendary actor returning from retirement after nearly a decade, and the fight to preserve a nation's cinematic history. We are covering the stories that define the power of film today. Welcome to the Film Mandate, and in today's episode, the stories are James Gunn teases the Superman sequel and is aiming for an April 2026 shoot. And also, Daniel Day-Lewis has returned from retirement after almost a decade and has stated a reason why he has returned to purposefully do a project with his son. And last but not least, the filmmakers of the documentary The Eyes of Ghana has spoken about the political power of cinema. We'll be delving into all these stories right here on the Film Mandate. My name is Papa Otu. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the Film Mandate, and thanks so much for joining me for this episode. I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize for starting late than the usual time of 11:45. I was encountering a number of technical difficulties, but fortunately I was able to resolve it so that I could have it done live. So I sincerely apologize for not starting on time, and I'll do my best to ensure that this doesn't repeat itself. So thank you so much again for joining me. And we'll be delving into today's first story. It was not long ago, about I think barely a week ago, where we had James Gunn confirm via an interview that he will soon be actually shooting Superman 2, that a production of Superman 2 is currently in the works. And he spoke about how he has developed a very detailed treatment for a sequel. Well, in his own words, he said it's not a sequel, but rather a second movie in the Superman saga. And just this week, we had the confirmation that he is actually shooting, where he dropped the images of an artwork done by Jim Lee, which showcased the Superman and Lex Luthor in his armored suit. And that was one of the excitement that went all over, particularly with the fans of DC, and they spoke about it at length. Well, in another interview with Howard Stein on his Sirius XM program, he has confirmed that they are aiming for a 2026 shoot, and that is in April, with the possibility of also releasing it the following year, that is in July 2027. And it looks like it is quite a project that has been fast tracked, seeing that even David Zaslav himself, the CEO of Warner Brothers, did state that James Gunn would be working on the script to a sequel to Superman. So finally, it looks like everything seems to be going as planned, seeing that James Gunn as a filmmaker is quite fast in churning out stories, and it looks like this is his field, his field that he's playing in a sandbox that he's really good at. So as it stands now, it seems confirmed that he will be shooting, though he says that they are aiming to shoot at April. So it may not necessarily be set in stone with regards to the April shoot, but looking at how fast James Gunn and him being the head, knowing the plan for the entire cinematic universe he's building, it is very likely that he would indeed go, make it to the April date that he has set for himself. So it is very, very likely. So one of the things that he actually went ahead to also hint at the sequel, the plot for the sequel. And just as a lot of people have been guessing, it looks like majority were right on the issue that it looks like Lex Luthor will be teaming up with Clark Kent or Superman. So this obviously means that David Consworth and Nicholas Hoult will be reprising their role in this new film, but also it will involve a number of actors a number of actors reprising their roles from the previous Superman film. So there is going to be Mr. Terrific returning. You're also going to have Hawk Girl returning, and a whole host of other, definitely Guy Gardner, played by Nathan Fillion, will be returning as well. So you'll be seeing a number of all these people returning. And as to whether the dynamics of the film itself will be an entirely a team-up movie, that we cannot tell. But what we know for certain is that for quite a reasonable part of the movie, you'll be having Lex Luthor and the Clark Kent or Superman teaming up to fight against a threat that is perhaps, quote unquote, maybe a little bigger than what Superman and the others can handle. When I heard this, the first thing that came to mind was that aren't there enough people, a roster of superheroes that Superman can rely on? And yes, obviously there are, because you have, the Green Lantern, you have Hawkeye, you have Mr. Terrific, you also have the Metamorpho. So I was thinking that these teams should be enough to help him, ward off whatever threats that may be. But I realized that what Lex Luthor offers may be something bigger than what even Mr. Terrific can handle, since he's considered to be one of the most, if not the most intelligent person of the DCU, perhaps one of the toppest 3 or even 2. But he is the most intelligent person in the what's it called, the DC universe. And not only that, but he also has enough resources to marshal whatever is needed to stop whatever threat that may be. As to the details as to how they will end up together teaming, we do not know. But when I think about all these things, it looks like perhaps that's the very pattern they should go to give Lex Luthor some layered, aspect to his character that, particularly when you watch the film and you realize the last monologue Superman offered to him to appeal to Lex Luthor's humanity, possibly, it is possible that perhaps the effect of that conversation or monologue is going to impact Lex Luthor to offer himself to want to be part or partner with Superman to ward off that threat. As to what threat that may be, we do not know because James Gunn has kept the lid tight on whatever the details of the script he is working on is. So, but some of the likely potential characters people have been throwing around is likely, Brainiac, which have not really been realized in live action before, but in the animated movies, it has been done. But in terms of live action, it hasn't. And others are teasing Darkseid, which I think may be too early for this particular universe, seeing that Darkseid is like the alpha and omega of the entire DCU. Maybe I'm sure there are other villains that are perhaps much more powerful than Darkseid, but I think it may be too early to bring in Darkseid. But however, a good script writer like James Gunn himself would find a way, should it be that Darkseid is who he's aiming at to play the villainous role in the next installment of the Superman saga. So it is quite interesting. And I also think that if that threat is that huge and big that he would have to enlist the support of Lex Luthor to fight off that threat, then there is the likelihood that I'm sure he would call upon the cousin, that is Supergirl, to join in the fight. I'm sure he would prefer to do that first before even thinking about bringing Lex on board, since Lex is quite unpredictable. So I'm sure if Kara doesn't end up in this movie, then perhaps there would be a way of justifying why she is not in that movie, and rather Clark Kent or Superman is teaming up with Lex Luthor to ward off the threat. But whatever that situation may be, I'm sure James Gunn is adept at making it work carefully. And it looks like the events of Peacemaker 2 would also impact what may happen in the Superman. And since it's not done yet in terms of this entire episodes of Peacemaker 2 is not done yet, we would perhaps we would have to watch out how things unfold and what the possibly ramifications of what happened in Peacemaker may influence that of Superman, as to whether it may be very the gravity of whatever situation in Peacemaker 2 will be much impactful on the film. We cannot tell, but I don't think it's going to be so the gravity may be so much that you would have to necessarily watch the entirety of Peacemaker to understand what will happen in the Superman, since James Gunn himself said that you wouldn't have to do that small screen homework to know what is happening on the big screen. But whatever that situation is now, I cannot tell. Perhaps they are finding ways and means of close knitting all the stories together so that it will make more sense and potentially push people to go and watch what is the series on the HBO Max platform. So it will be quite interesting to know what's going to happen. And it looks like James Gunn will be delving deep into the characterization of Lex Luthor. So he made a statement which I would like to reiterate. He says that he relates to the character of Lex sadly. So I'm sure whatever it may be, he's going to flesh out a very deep, character arc for Lex Luthor this time around, that in as much as we would want to hate him, we could perhaps understand or empathize with whatever it is that has shaped his mindset for him being that villainous in the film. So I don't know how he's going to go about it, but you can be rest assured that James Gunn would craft a very deep emotional layer to Lex Luthor, that even though we may not agree with his ways, but we could perhaps sympathize, maybe not empathize, but sympathize with why he is what it is, perhaps from the first Superman to now being in this sequel. So it will be quite interesting to see how all these will play out. But definitely the love interest of Superman would be in this film. I don't think it will be a complete Superman film without Lois Lane in the movie. Seeing that in the first film they were in a relationship, so obviously that would continue here. And she brings, particularly Rachel Brosnahan brings some form of I would say some hard edge or balance to the soft nature of Clark Kent. So it looks like they are two different sides of the same coin. And so it would be nice to have a return, which of course I think she would, to give that fresh take to the entire sequel or the second installment in the Superman saga. So that is something personally I'm looking forward to, and I think there's going to be a lot of ideological wars with regards to Superman, being the hope of humanity, and Lex Luthor with all perhaps well-intended purposes, but from a different, from a lens that is perhaps fearful. They'll be battling ideological, they come from two different ideological stands, and finally maybe there will be a common ground with which perhaps Lex Luthor would have to take a different stance from the perspective of Clark Kent to be able to deal with the threat that they are likely to face. So honestly, that is something I'm looking forward to. It gives me a little bit vibe of Batman vs Superman, but this time around, this is happening within the pantheon of the Superman universe rather than the dark, gritty nature of Batman invading the space of Superman. So it may follow in a similar vein, but perhaps it may not be as structured as we saw in the Batman vs Superman, where they were at loggerheads. I think we've already seen that in the first Superman movie. So obviously, you don't need to reiterate the animosity Lex Luthor have against Clark, because perhaps he makes him feel small, as we saw in the Batman vs Superman, where Batman felt helpless seeing that Superman is a threat, and one way or the other, since they don't know who he is, they have to stop him at all costs. So in this particular one, I think it's already been handled in the first Superman, so there wouldn't be any confrontation of any sort in the film. Perhaps it may be the vice versa, that after having dealt with the threat, Lex may find a way of escaping from Superman to go marshal his forces even more to come again as a nemesis against him later in the saga, or maybe in the DC universe, down the line. So it'll be quite interesting to know how James Gunn is going to weave out the plot and make it entirely different from what we've already seen in other reiterations of Superman or the DC EU. So it is quite an interesting thing to go by. So let me know what you think about this development, about concerning the sequel to Superman, that Lex will be teaming up with Superman to face an imminent threat, perhaps bigger than the two of them. Whatever your thoughts may be, can you leave it in the comment section below? So moving on from a story about the DCU legacy, we are now delving into one of the most iconic actors of all time that you can ever, think of, and that is none other than the iconic and legendary film actor Daniel Day-Lewis. So it was about almost a decade ago, where after starring the film Phantom Thread, of which I think he was nominated for Best Actor, and he is one of the most nominated Oscar Award Best Actors, and also he happens to have won 3 Best Picture statuettes already in the position of a Best Actor award. So it was, it's not surprising, because some time back he said he was retiring from acting, and this time around, almost every one of us thought that he's retiring indeed for good. However, he has come out of retirement, but this time around, there was a good reason for him that he thinks that he wanted to come out of retirement. And the reason being that he worked on a script with his son, Ronan Day Lewis, who is a 27-year-old launching into the filmmaking business for the first time, and this would be his first film. And this is the reason why usually he doesn't want to even come back into acting. He felt that anytime he does acting, there's a lot that, he gives out a lot, and the regeneration process for him takes a lot of time. And he prefers to, at a point in time after doing Phantom Thread, he thought that now this is the best time for him to retire. But for his son returning to the filmmaking process, after working on the script with him, he realized that no, he felt the emptiness, and then the idea that his son will be doing a project without him. He felt no, he needs to be part of this project. And there's something that his son did say, which sort of ignited his passion again for film acting. The son did say something that he's not going to work on this project if his father chooses not to act in the film. And that became the impetus for him to return to play a role that he himself scripted together with the son. And now he's making history again. And if you've watched the trailer, the film is called Anemone. Anemone. I hope that's the pronunciation. Anemone. And it stars Daniel Day-Lewis, Sean Beam, and a couple of other well-noted actors who are playing several important roles in the film. And it looks like more of an independent-looking film, not a big blockbuster. And that is what Daniel Day-Lewis didn't want his son to actually do with regards to the project itself. And it's been produced by Plan B for Fox Searchlight. Is it Searchlight? Yeah, for Searchlight. So, no, sorry, for Focus Features. Pardon me, for Focus Features. So that is what they are working on. So his reason for returning was more of a residual sadness about missing his son's filmmaking journey, and a desire to collaborate on a smaller, more intimate project. So that was what he was going for. And for that reason, it made him interested in the project and return. One of the things he has struggled with, and for the reasons why he always wanted to retire or has retired on the second time, is that he felt hollowed out, by the filmmaking process and the public life that came with it. And he keeps to himself more often than not. So he doesn't like all the attention and all the life that came with it. And this caused him to retire, or have retired quite a couple of times. But one of the things that he said that was quite interesting is that he said perhaps he spoke too soon. Maybe he should have just kept quiet and leave the scene quietly for a time when, if he had to return, people wouldn't assume that he's faking his retirement all the time. And he did term it as his retirement announcement, being a grandiose gibberish, stating he just wanted to work on something else for a while. So that has been some of the things with a lot of filmmakers. And then, when they get a bug, the itch again, they always want to come back. But I know this he did for the son. He wants to be there for the son when he is starting his career whilst he's ending here. So I like the fact that he did say that because of what they did, there's so much joy that he had working with his son on a project, and that is fascinating to hear. And it's an exciting thing to have a father, his son working together on a project, and that is quite interesting and exciting. Yeah, so, and Daniel Day-Lewis plays a recluse in Northern England whose life is upended when his brother Sean Bean forces him to confront their mysterious past. And that is what we only know about the production. The details of it, maybe if you watch the trailer, you may glean a little bit more from what the story may be about. But apart from the fact that he is a ex-soldier. When you watch the trailer, you see that maybe he's an ex-soldier, but the details as to who he truly is, what the story is really about, we don't know. And that is how tight-lipped they have been on this production. And just having Daniel Day-Lewis starring in it alone is noteworthy enough for people to troop in and watch, because he is indeed a powerhouse. And not only that, he has proven time and time again with every project that he has starred in, he brings on board his A game without a shadow of doubt. He brings on board his A game. And seeing that he's working with his son, who perhaps has the same mindset and energy and fervor like he does, I'm sure they are making magic already. So we'll be seeing it will be dropping anytime soon. I think it will be having some limited releases before a wider theatrical release somewhere in October. However, when you watch the trailer, you have the date stated November 7th on it as to when it may come out. So I don't know why the discrepancies in the date. But whatever the situation may be, we are happy to have an actor of the caliber of Daniel Day-Lewis returning for his family-driven project, which I'm excited for him and his son for collaborating on this particular project. So let me know what you think. What does this say about the evolving nature of artistic fulfillment versus industry pressures? Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave it in the comment section below. And now let's move on to our final story of the day. And for our final story of the day, we've been talking about James Gunn building the DCU legacy anew, to differentiate it from what we had in the past of the DCU. We also have an actor in the caliber of Daniel Day-Lewis returning to fortify his artistic, legacy. And now we have a new story that delves into the historical legacy of a country, and I'm talking about Ghana. And it looks like I keep talking about this particular project for a lot, but the fact is this: it's been in the news for quite a while because of the wave is causing within the film community, particularly opening the event of the Toronto International Film Festival. That was the first film that opened the event, and it's received high praise with regards to the project that Ben Proudfoot, the two-time Oscar Academy Award winner, worked on together with the producer Anita Afonu and Nana Adwoa Frimpong and his cinematographer. Pardon me, I've blanked out on the name. But they worked on this project, and the project is none other than The Eyes of Ghana. However, this time around, they are not just talking about how is winning an award. I mean, how about the event itself and the story in it, but they are talking more about the power of the political power of cinema. How this particular archives of footage that over a period of time, the Reverend Chris Hesse, who is the subject matter of the production, has captured over time, and even at the risk of his own lives, has kept the negatives of the footage safe, only for it to finally be, outdoored in this particular production. And it is quite an interesting journey that he has had, seeing the fact that when he was actually with the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah, the subsequent leaders that followed wanted the footages destroyed. But at the peril of his own lives, he fought to ensure that these footages will be kept safe. And that is what he did. Most of the footage were actually, or all the footage from the articles that I've read so far points to the fact that it was stored in London, far away from the shores of Ghana, when these political upheavals were happening and seeking to erase the legacy of Kwame Nkrumah. But the interesting aspect of this production is not about stirring up any political confusion whatsoever, but the idea that the histories are facts, and facts ought to be, kept as it is to understand what the past was about, so that we can learn and face the future in a more hopeful and purposeful manner. So that is one thing that in this article it did state. And I'd like to read something briefly that the producer Anta Afunu said, which I felt was very powerful and impactful. And so, they granted an interview to the Variety, and they were asked a number of questions, which they provided very in-depth answers to. And one of the things that Anita said is what I realized that it's powerful for even the whole world to know. So let me just bring it back on the screen, and then we would see what she said. So this is what the question she was asked. It says, Nkrumah was well aware of the power of cinema to market Ghana, the same way Hollywood was marketing America through films. What do you hope international audiences will learn about Ghana through this film? And her response is excellent, is brilliant. So this is what she said. The film for me is full circle. Once upon a time, like Chris said, there was a man called Kwame Nkrumah, and he inspired the liberation of the African continent. He does this, which extends to Barack Obama, Sr., a Kenyan economist, which then extends to the United States having the first black president, Barack Obama, who is now an executive producer for this film. It goes to show you Kwame Nkrumah's impact on the continent. But this is the most interesting part I wanted you to pay attention to. It also tells you that there was a time in Ghana's life where filmmaking was actually a thing. There was a president who was so interested in cinema, who understood the power of cinema, that he made effort to have Ghana be the space for filmmaking on the continent. It is a beautiful and inspiring to see that that was a time when something like this actually did exist. When people watch this and see that we had a charismatic leader like Kwame Nkrumah, and it was because of him that the continent changed, it's going to bring about a resurgence. People are going to know more about Ghana, more about Nkrumah, and essentially take more interest in cinema on the continent. And I like this so much because it does point to the fact that once upon a time, not only did we have a political leader who is trying to, shape the future of a country that he just wrestled the reins of independence from, our colonial masters, but also he was so concerned and having understood what it meant to use cinema to shape perceptions of people, and also actually rally people to do things positively or negatively, whichever way it may be, as we would term in terms of propaganda. He realized that cinema has so much power to, rally up a nation to follow people to do the bidding, of the, of what is necessary to be done in a country. And that is what Kwame Nkrumah saw and brought onto the shores of Ghana. And his actions helped shape what we are experiencing today in Africa, in terms of freedom and so many other things. But for me, the key point here is the fact that he understood the power of cinema. And once upon a time, Ghana was, in terms of Africa, Ghana was the pinnacle of, cinematic excellence when it comes to, the film industry. And unfortunately, we lost it as a result of, successive, coup that happened on this nation, and the fact that even those successive leaders that came didn't even understand the power of cinema to have used it to our advantage. Unfortunately, they sought to, the whole idea is not to even talk about whether Nkrumah was right or wrong, or whether they were right or wrong. For me, my passion for film is what I care much about, and I'm glad that a leader understood the power of cinema, and in as much as we don't have a thriving industry that I would have hoped we do have, it still points out to the fact that in our DNA lies the ability to achieve cinematic excellence in whatever form or capacity that we have. Currently, we have a struggling film industry, and it is something we've spoke about endlessly. Hopefully, when these footages or celluloids are digitized and we have the opportunity to watch the full scope as to the vision and the passion of Kwame Nkrumah in regards to cinema, it may help us have a renaissance as to our filmmaking, and perhaps even reel in investors and all stakeholders to help shape up the industry to perhaps the former glory that Nkrumah had for the country of Ghana. So there's a lot I would like to talk about this, but I don't know much because I haven't seen the documentary, and the digitization is still ongoing. So hopefully, when the 300 hours or more of stock footage that the Reverend Chris Hesse shot during the time of Nkrumah, and I'm sure after as well, is finally made public, we will get to see the glorious days of that era, and how as descendants, in this new generation of ours, how we can use that knowledge, the newfound knowledge and pride, to help build, a force to reckon with. And rightfully so, Nkrumah realized that America shaped its country with cinema, and we can do same now. As a matter of fact, so many other countries are doing same for their nation, using cinema to shape the perceptions of people, to boost people's confidence in themselves and whatnot. We can do same with our country as well. And I'm glad that Reverend Chris Hesse went all out to make that happen. And it speaks a lot to the brave and the confidence the filmmakers also had in this particular project, from Ben Proudfoot, Anita Ajua, the cinematographer, also for making this happen. And I'm indeed excited about this project. So I'm looking forward to knowing more about my country in an era where a lot of the information is only what we saw in the documentaries about Nkrumah. The one documentary that I did watch about Nkrumah, showing different sides, which is supposed to be so. For as a documentary, you want to be very objective, to present all sides of the subject matter for people to make the decision on their own. However, some did push too far onto either side. I'm sure with this footage, when it's finally made public, we'll get to see the facts for ourselves and be the judge for our own selves. But I'm thankful for a leader who had a passion for cinema, and my hope is that in this future that we find ourselves, we'll help realize this vision and bring Ghana to a stance where it's deserving of us making impact worldwide with cinema. So let me know what you think about the Chris Hesse story on the broader, theme of cinema, and it being a tool for political power, historical preservation, and all, and why this recovered history is so vital for Ghana and the continent of Africa. Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave it in the comment section below. Yes, I have done with my stories for the day, but you know that today being a Friday, seeing that we are going into a weekend, a lot of films will be showing anew in the cinemas, both in Ghana and the world over. So I thought I would bring to you a list of the films that are showing so that you can make a choice of them and go into the cinema to watch any of them if you so choose. So starting with Ghana, from the Silverbird Cinema, these are the films opening today and also throughout the weekends. So the first one, we have the Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the film that has been making big waves in the Asian region, is opening today in at the Silverbird Cinemas. also Code 3, which is an action comedy, and Cloud. Code 3 will be opening also today, but Cloud will be opening tomorrow. And that is September 13th, which is, September 13th, which has Van Vika and Ajite Anand starring in it. So it will be an interesting production that I would encourage us all to go and watch and support it. So yeah. Also, we have The Conjuring Rites, The Conjuring, The Last Rite, which opened last week. Caught Stealing is still in the cinemas August 29th. And we also have The Roses. We have Legacy Africa, Red Sonja, Nobody 2 also is still in the cinemas. Revelations starring RMD is still in the cinemas that you can go and watch. It's a Nollywood film as well. You have Weapons also doing well in the cinemas since August 8th is still in the cinemas. You have A Kiss Too Late, The Bad Guys 2, Superman, The Fantastic Four is still in the cinemas. So you can go and watch it if you feel like doing so. However, coming soon is Him, which is a Jordan Peele produced film, which you can go and watch. But a film that I was part of, which would also be premiering soon, The Fisherman, would also be showing at the Silverbird Cinemas next week. To be showing at the Silverbird Cinema next week. It's also a comedy, a Ghanaian comedy as well. So do well to pencil this particular date in your calendar and ensure you go and watch it come September 19th. So these are the films showing in the Ghanaian cinemas this weekend. However, let's take a look at the films that will be showing in the cinemas worldwide. So let's take a brief look at them. So this is the Rotten Tomatoes website, and it says that, so you have The Long Walk, which stars Mark Hamill and some other young actors in the film. You also have the Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba also opening today. You have Downtown Abbey, the grand finale, Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues. We also have The History of Sound. We have Toy Story, which is a re-release. And then you have Rabbit Trap, Traumatica, The Man in My Basement, and The Sound of Music, all premiering or re-releasing today. So you can, wherever you are, you can check. I'll leave the link of this in the description below so that you can take a look at it and know which cinemas some of these productions will be showing in, whether they are closer to you, so that you can go and take a look at. There are several other films also which we'll be showcasing today as well. So I'll be leaving them in the link in the description below so that you can go wherever you are, you can take a look at it, see which cinemas are showing, and you can go and watch it. So all too soon, I've come to an end of this particular episode, and thanks so much for joining me for this episode of the Film Mandate. I'll be coming your way again on Monday with new stories from the weekend and beyond from all over the world to talk about on this very platform of the Film Mandate. Thank you so much once again, and my name is Papa Otu, and I'll see you soon. This has been the Film Mandate.